So I've got a question for you. Do you have a dream game? Some combination of features and ideas, styles and mechanics, or stories that, if all put together, would make you just so happy and give you the most satisfaction of any game, and be something that you could come back to over and over and over and still love it? I'm sure some of you do, and it might already be real. Maybe you own it. But I've been thinking of that lately, and up until recently it's only ever been that, just a dream. But in the past few months, that dream's been becoming more and more of a reality, thanks to a few select games, namely Tarkov, H3VR, and Into the Radius 2. With the power of these games, and a lot of mods, I can live the dream.
For maximum scrawl.
But what is this dream game of mine? Well, the general idea has always been a game with immersive, good-feeling weapons for starters. Lots of customizability, lots of variety, and intricate detail into each gun. It would have a focus on gunplay, being able to use these high-quality weapons effectively, being able to smoothly and stylishly maneuver with the weapon like it's part of you, to be able to take on an enemy that thinks and strategizes with their teammates to work to take you out. It would have a form of progression, equipment gathering and improving, a storyline, upgrades, and messing around with your own base. And the equipment you use would matter. If you fail to prepare, you can already have lost the moment you leave the door. Also, to keep you in the world, that world would have to be good too. A very immersive, grounded, and interesting world that reacts to the player and doesn't stay the same forever. Modability is another big thing. To keep the game fresh and change anything about it I'd like, being able to mod the game is a necessity. Yes, I know this is my dream game, so I shouldn't want to change it, right? But even I'm not delusional enough to think that I'll love the base game forever without mods. All of my favorite games have been ones that I can fully change as I please when I want to, and I know I wouldn't have nearly the amount of hours I've clocked in without that. One last thing, and here's the big kicker. I want it in co-op.
Damn, I've already backed myself into a corner right here. Or should I say blacked myself into it? Okay, I'm sorry.
And that's the biggest issue, because I can have experiences like this now, and I have. And they've, one, not been exactly what I've wanted, and two, haven't been co-op. Single player's great, but anything with friends is almost always more fun for me.
What's the first rule of gun safety? Have fun?
Yeah. Are you having fun?
Yeah.
And open multiplayer like Tarkov or DayZ, or an MMO setting like Stay Out just never really vibed with me. From sweats to cheaters to just general weirdos, I don't want to deal with the great expanse of matchmaking when I just want to chill with my friends. So, that's the general idea of what I want. But what have I been looking into to actually experience this dream game idea? Well, there's a few games I've got that each scratch a specific itch, but so far they haven't quite satisfied me. But some get close. The main games in question are Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades, Escape from Tarkov, the STALKER games, and Into the Radius 2. H3VR is a good contender on the weapons side of things, with weapons that are super customizable out of the box, on top of having so many mods that I'm always afraid I'm missing the mod. The one mod that really wraps up my mod list with a nice bow. On top of the regular guns, there's a series of modular mods that really allow you to build weapons, with the original module series being more like Escape from Tarkov, having to individually attach each piece and also running like shit, and the newer Module 2 series, which works more like the Call of Duty gunsmith system. Tarkov's also fantastic not only with customization, but full weapon building and durability, and each part having different effects on the gun to really make each build feel a little unique. Stalker Anomaly and especially Desolation are great for having this in-depth weapon system that I like to mess with a big part of the gameplay loop focusing on the maintenance and growth of your virtual arsenal. And Into the Radius, while not having the customization, does make up for it by having the coziest feature of all, manually cleaning your guns. Which, of course, Into the Radius 2 doesn't have yet, but I lied, they updated the game while I was making this video. So yeah, no, gun cleaning is in the game now. Stalker Anomaly and Desolation are probably the best for the weapon customization, combat, and immersion that I want. On top of Desolation, there's this one thing some guy was working on, which is Desolation plus the EFP mod pack, which seems interesting. And are almost perfect, except for the same issue as all the other games, at least by default. Players. H3VR is a single player game, same with the Stalker games and the mods for that. Tarkov is multiplayer. No, Unheard's co-op doesn't count. Luckily, mods exist for H3VR and Tarkov to fix this issue that I have with them. H3VR has the H3MP mod, which adds surprisingly good co-op to the game, being able to use it in most environments, even modded maps, and some modded game modes. Tarkov has s.t.a.l.k.e.r, a single-player mod of the game which has its own host of mods for that version of it, which includes FICA, a mod that adds co-op functionality to s.t.a.l.k.e.r. So yeah, a co-op mod for a single-player mod of a multiplayer game. I know, but it works, and it works really fucking well. God, it's so fun.
Oh! He's not dead.
So yeah, back to H3MP. You can kind of mod the experience of Tarkov into that game using the supply raid and safe house progression mods. These mods make the extraction shooter gameplay loop possible in H3VR, which, as nice as it is to have some form of progression in the game, it's still super bare bones. I don't even really like the Tarkov progression. It's kind of just doing missions so you can unlock more missions to do more missions, and that always really turned me off of the game. But for all these mods have done, it's really close to what I want. So is SP-Tarkov, but it's just not quite there. But we're almost there, and there's more stuff to browse, so let's keep investigating. Stalker and its mods have always been good to me, and I always come back to the zone in some way or another, like once a year at least. But of course, no co-op. There was one mod, Ray of Hope, that was promising, but I'm pretty sure it's defunct, and if it's not, then it's at least definitely not getting finished in my lifetime, so I'll stop holding my breath on that. Shadow of Co-op was a goofy conversion of Shadow of Chernobyl's story, but in co-op, which kind of worked, but it had lots of issues, and when I played it with my friends, which one of them recorded and made a video on, the link is in the description by the way, we could only get so far until it completely bugged out and we couldn't continue. Anomaly Co-op is a discussion I've seen bouncing around a while, but nothing's really come of it, so there's no point in crossing my fingers until that releases, if something like that ever does. Side note, Fallout 4 would be good with its open world, gun customization, lore, and hellish amounts of mods to really fine-tune the game into whatever you want. There was a mod in development for it, Fallout Together, by the same people who made the Skyrim Together mod, until it ended up being just one guy working on it alone, and then he basically gave up on it and open sourced it until some other willing participants would decide to pitch in, which no one did, so now there's no one working on that. God. Really, the greatest hope I have for my dream game right now is modding the hell out of s.t.a.l.k.e.r and H3VR and Into the Radius 2, which, that's a game.
Now there's an actual reason to use the system.
God fucking damn it.
So, a stalker type world with hella atmosphere, immersion, and general vibes, some neat gunplay with tight yet comfortable inventory management, including a variety of chest rigs to choose from based on what you want to use, the promise of future updates and mods, being in VR, which is a major plus to me, functional co-op.
What's bro doing over there? What in God's name could bro possibly you motherfucker?
Clean up a nail, fuck you!
and checkers. This game could be good. If the devs finish it, that is. Which honestly, after playing Into the Radius 1, I'd like to have hope. I really would. But I know better than to trust developers because they made something good in the past. So I'll have to hold off on saying anything good or bad until the game's either well developed enough to be playable or crashes and burns so I can point and laugh. But if it becomes essentially what Into the Radius 1 was, but in co-op, that genuinely might be the dream game for me. Here's a fun side tangent for you. Recording in VR. Spoiler alert, it fucking sucks. I don't like it in general. Every game is a bit different for how the best recording setup will be, but there's a very hyper-specific issue that I have with recording in H3VR. Now by default, it's fantastic. It has this built-in spectator panel that lets you edit the field of view, smoothing, point of view, and it includes first person, third person, and spawned cameras. It is the best experience that I've had recording in VR, and it looks great with player bodies, except for the fact that any hair and most masks, or just, the head model in general, will be visible in the camera. You see, for some reason, the hair gets rendered in the actual recording, but not the preview window. It gets in the way, and it's really annoying, especially on some particular models. Now I can cope by saying it's immersive to see your own hair in your face, but yeah, it just sucks for recording. Luckily for me, people in the H3VR modding Discord have very recently discussed this very specific issue I have, and are working towards fixing it right now. That was months ago. No, they didn't fucking fix it, of course. It's still an issue, and I don't think anyone knows how to fix it. Now, I've tried working around this in a few ways. I could use the default spectator cam, but that just sucks dick, and I'm not using that. I could use the Steam VR view, but that's a lot more limited, and if I want a higher field of view that blends both eyes, I get this weird overlap effect with the objects. I could record in third person, but that takes you away from the gun details that I want to show off. I could record with a helmet cam, which is kinda cool looking, and it almost works for specific situations, but it's kind of like a blend of the third person issue, where I want you to actually see the gun details up close. I tried mounting a camera to the helmet in a weird jank way that goes over my eye, but of course that means I can't really see too well. I've tried modifying the third-person camera values so the camera lines up with where the first-person view would be, but just far enough that the hair doesn't clash, but I just couldn't get that to work right. I even tried male player models that don't have hair, but the head model just clips anyway. One last resort would be to just learn how to edit the player models myself and make a custom first-person model that doesn't have the head. But let's be real, I'm not gonna do that. And knowing me, I'd get stuck on the first step of the process and never finish it even if I tried. Really, my two options are deal with hair clipping, deal with Steam VR overlay, deal with a low field of view, or just don't have the player models in the first place, which I don't want to do, but I kinda have to for some clips, but I really like having hands. It feels so nice. And of course, Into the Radius has its own issues, where my PC can barely run the game and it will self-destruct if I so much as tab over to OBS to make sure I'm recording. So this is the best you get, really. I'm sorry. It's not that bad, but I wish it was better. Now, before I really get into the Radius 2, let me tell you about my modding experience with H3VR and s.t.a.l.k.e.r, and the contrast between the two when it comes to the gameplay. It's probably the most moddable pair of games I've played in recent memory. Like, God, This rivals like Gary's mod level of modding, I swear. You see, H3VR is a great example of what I want out of gameplay, having good control over the weapons and all that. Now, the realism mod does make the guns really controllable and great to maneuver, but there's just something about H3VR that just does it better, you know? Like, I can't really put my physical, real human hand on it. Yeah, it's in virtual reality, alright? It's VR, that kinda makes it fucking unfair when it comes to controllability. Realism could add a keybind for any possible movement they could think of and still not have the same level of versatility that H3VR's gunplay offers because it's literally just your hands and your body controlling the weapons. It doesn't get much more controllable than that. And with the mods for the game, it makes the weapons so much more detailed and interesting to use. There's like 3 or 4 mods related to jamming, and I have them all installed at once. It's fantastic. Now, don't get me wrong, s.t.a.l.k.e.r is fantastic in its own right. Beyond just gameplay, it and the realism mod have some in-depth mechanics for healing, armor, and now radiation with one of the newest updates. Along with the good old stash and having actual quests and stuff, and overall just being less jank than a series of mods for H3VR. Oh, I got instantly fucking triple headshot, okay. As much as I can do with H3VR, Tarkov is just more immersive in some ways, though I think I prefer H3VR gameplay, despite that, just because I can get close enough with that game. You know, starting this I had a different idea of where it'd go. I thought Into the Radius 2 was going to be the end-all be-all, the holy grail and game that I fell in love with forever. It's not that. Not yet, at least, and who am I to say it ever will? Time goes on and the development process is never certain on where things will go from the initial idea. It could turn out to be a very different game from the one in my head, and that kind of scares me. Like, I just want Into the Radius 1, but with the weapons, armor, and customization mechanics of something like Tarkov added onto it. But I have no idea if that's what the devs want, so maybe I won't get it. I've had this issue with another game in development too, Eerie 2. In the beginning, the dev teased parkour mechanics, a variety of weapons to build, and very fancy, very clean, almost Titanfall-esque gunplay. The game was like that for a time, and then it changed. Again and again, with each update, the game became something entirely new. New maps, new guns, new mechanics. Most of the time, a lot of things from the previous versions would be wiped from the game, never to return. Of course, the dev recently made a beta branch for the game that lets you play one of the older versions of it, which is great, but still hurts to know that I can't get that game as it was expanded upon. Unless he decides to make it so, of course. So it's hard to say that I'm excited for Into the Radius 2 despite it being so close to what I want, because at the end of the day, it's just hope for an idea. And I've taken enough chances on promises and been burned that I can't really have faith in the idea alone. So there's this little hentai game. So this is indie, there's an indie game that I've played recently called In the Limbo, or Hengoku Knight, I guess. It's more like a jank version of what I'd want to have in a game. Half decent weapon mechanics, character customization, body and limb damage mechanics, as well as armor and anime girls. Now of course I can get all this with Tarkov, Stalker, and Fallout, and it's also not co-op, but I don't know, it's really fun, and it makes me think that maybe my dream game isn't just a set of rules and features to satisfy some lofty, vague idea in my head. Maybe it's just a vibe. A sprinkle of every mechanic I love, spread across multiple games with a variety of depth and quality that I can rotate between forever. And I can keep finding more interesting games and just add them to my collection. I know I have a lot of games that I want to talk about that didn't fit exactly what I was wanting to talk about here, for one reason or another, but they deserve the light of day too, or at least I want to not be the only one who knows about them. So maybe I'll share my dreams with you in the near future. I'll see you then.